What's going on, guys? Today we're out here moving some of these cameras around. We're filling up some of the feeders that we didn't get feed in last time we was out here, and just checking everything, seeing what's going on. So I wanted to go over a couple tips that I use, a couple things that I do to try to pattern bucks and just help me get a better idea of the deer that I'm chasing, to just set up better on him once season gets here. So it's the beginning of July right now. These really, they're not no top secret. This is, I mean, you can probably go to any hunting page that talks about stuff like this and they're going to tell you the same thing. But the first thing I want to go over is, like, we're filling these feeders up. So here pretty soon, probably now, we're going to try to get out here. This is mainly probably going to work more for like feeders that you're filling up often, or some states where you can pour on the ground. We can't pour on the ground here in Mississippi, but some states I know you can. Places where deer are going to be going through that feed, you know, within a week period, depending on how much you're putting out. Somewhere that you're going in a lot. So automatic feeders, I don't feel like this is going to apply too much to that, because I mean, those, depending on how long you're spending them, those will last a month or two, depending on how big your feeder is and how long you're spending corn every time it goes off. But so for a gravity feeder, like one that I've got that I hunted over last year, they would go through that feeder, I mean, within a week really, once they started hitting it a lot. So the first tip I'm going to try to go over with y'all is feeding at the same time consistently. So like, today's Monday, but we're off for the 4th, but normally my feed days are probably going to be Saturday or Sunday on the weekend. So my goal is every time I go fill up that gravity feeder, Saturday at lunchtime, that's what time I want to be up here. I want the deer to know, hey, every Saturday that guy's coming in on the side by side or walking in, he's filling up the feeder at lunchtime. So that means once they realize that I'm not coming in any other time, if I can stay consistent with that time, they're going to say, hey, we're good to go in here at morning time or right there at dark before it gets to dark. We can go in daylight and eat because that guy's not coming in and bothering us. So let them deer pattern you. Now, only when you're feeding, you know, like I'm going to go in with a side by side just because I kind of had good luck with it before. There's people who probably disagree with this, but I'm going to go in on the side by side. I'm going to drive probably about 100 yards from my spot, just because I don't have a trail cut all the way out to that feeder. I'm going to drive the side by side 100 yards to the spot. They're going to hear the side by side. They're going to hear me pour corn in it because it's a metal feeder, or some of the backwoods products, whatever I'm putting in there. They're going to hear it. They're going to know, hey, that guy's in here every 6-7 days and putting corn out at lunchtime. One of my best friends killed a deer last year by doing that. He would go in, I think, every Sunday after church and go pour feed out. Opening weekend, he goes on that Sunday, pours feed out, and kills that buck that afternoon, because that buck knew that he was putting fresh feed out every Sunday in the middle of the day. So he also knew he was safe to come in there. You just got to let them deer pattern you to a certain extent. Now, you don't want them knowing everything about you, but give them a little bit of an advantage, I believe, to get an advantage over them. Let them think that they have an advantage over you when really you're the one giving them the advantage. So another thing with feeding, probably in August I'll start like places that I'll walk feed in. Now if I'm driving like in food plots, you're driving the side by side the truck to the feed or whatever, this isn't going to apply to that. But like some of these spots where like once it gets closer to season, I'll quit driving that side by side down there so often, probably, especially once season starts. I'll probably just start walking in, because I want them, once the pressure of season gets up, they're going to be a whole lot more nervous about everything. So, but I'll start spraying down with my Scent-A-Way stuff, you know, if I'm walking that in. That's just a little something, you know, to think about. You know, if you're going in there, they're going to know your scent, you know. So another thing that we're really focusing on is trail cameras. Now everybody out there is probably running trail cameras, but are you paying attention to your pictures? You know, you're saying, yeah, Ethan, that buck comes in and he showed up at daylight today, so I'm going to go hunt him. Okay, but which direction did he come from? What was the wind like? Had it rained? What was the temperature like? what was the pressure like that week. There's so much stuff that goes into these deer moving that we really don't think about. And I'm not claiming to be an expert now. This is stuff that I've really just started looking at and using over the past few years. And last year it really paid off. I mean, I can show you notes, I'll show it in the video, where I kept up with what time, I mean the exact time that the buck come in, what bucks he was with, where the wind was blowing. Did we have a cold front come through? Did the wind change from north to south? Man, I even kept up with the moon phases. I don't have a full opinion on the moon phases. I'm not going to get into that. But so say you got like I got a mirror sight right here behind the camera. So say this buck comes in. We are facing south right now. So a buck comes in. Say he comes from the east right here. Right now it gets dark at 8:30. Say he comes in at 8 o'clock from the east. Well, let me see what it was. The wind blowing from the west, or was he coming into the wind? I mean, I could sit here and go on and on. I'm going to show y'all, give y'all an example of paying attention to your terrain too with the wind. So where I was hunting that big 9 last year, if you watched any of our videos, I missed my target buck last year, but I got on him. He was in this bottom, I'll draw this out so you can see. The wind, he was actually coming from the southeast. When the wind was blowing out of the northeast, it was hitting these ridges and curving in this bottom and blowing back into the southeast. So I'll draw that out and kind of give y'all a little bit more on that. But know where your bucks are bedding. I mean, because I've had pictures last year where this buck was coming in and he was circling. It looked like he was coming from the north. That 9 point that I was hunting, it looked like he was coming from the north, but really, and the only reason I knew this is because I saw him do it the very first time I saw him. He come from the south, went north, and they ended up winding me, but he was going to circle the feeder and come back in. So pay attention to where these bucks are bedding too, if you can figure out. Look on your map, you know, get on the ground. Get out there, put some boots on the ground, scout a little bit. Because he was just circling it, and if I wouldn't, you can move your camera around different trees too. I did that too and ended up figuring that out too. But if you're just paying attention to which direction he's coming in from on your camera, you don't know where he's bedding at. Well, I would have been thinking he was coming from the north. In this particular stand, I could get into this stand from the north, directly from the west, and kind of from the southwest. So if I wouldn't have known he was actually coming from the west, I mean from the east and the southeast, I was walking right across where he was coming in at sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I would have been thinking he was coming from the north. So there's so much stuff, and I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. There's people out there that have a whole lot more knowledge about this stuff that can give you better tips, but this is just your basic. I mean, somebody who's just getting into hunting or really kind of transitioning into like really getting into the details of hunting and not just going and sitting in a stand and waiting on him to come out, you know, going on look. But that's really all I got for that. I mean, I think those things are really going to increase your odds of getting on a buck. You've got to know the deer, and I believe personally you've got to give them somewhat of an advantage. You got to let them think that they have the advantage. Let them think that they know where you're coming from and when you're coming from it. But if y'all have any questions, man, comment below. I'll try to answer them. Man, it's deer season for me. I mean, we're fixing to be picking target bucks out. We're really putting in the effort now. It's hot, but if you want to kill them big deer, you got to put in the work. I mean, you're going to get lucky eventually, but if you want to consistently see big deer, kill big deer, you got to be smarter.